Yeah.
So thank you, and as always, Senator Klobuchar has just teed up perfectly the issues I'd like to talk about. President Trump and Secretary McMahon are working as fast and as hard as they can to dismantle the Department of Education. I started out as a special ed teacher, and so today I'd like to focus on the impact of their efforts on our children with disabilities. The Education Department's Office of Civil Rights, which everyone calls the OCR, is responsible for protecting students who face discrimination in school. It is a lifeline for kids with disabilities. About half of all OCR complaints involve students with disabilities, but Trump has fired over half of OCR staff and shut down 7 out of the 12 regional offices, including our Boston office. That has real consequences. I'll tell one short story, and that is G. G has an intellectual disability, and she was allegedly locked in a padded room at her school over and over again, despite not posing a danger to herself or to others. Her mom filed a complaint with OCR, and then the Trump administration fired the lawyer who is assigned to G's case. And now they've got no one to help them there. And that's just one family's story. Gutting the Department of Education threatens our school kids everywhere. So, Dr. Rodriguez, you are a nationally recognized advocate for students with disabilities. Thank you for your lifetime of work. How many K through 12 public school students were left without a dedicated civil rights investigator thanks to Trump's cuts at the Education Department?
If we looked at the amount of cuts from OCR's offices, I would argue that 60,000 public schools and over 30 million K-12 students, according to the National Center for Education Statistics.
Good.
So 60,000 public schools and about 30 million K-12 students, according to the National Center for Education Statistics. 6,400 cases, as I mentioned in my previous testimony, were resolved last year for the Office of Civil Rights. That is, by and large, the preponderance of referrals to OCR, their disability discrimination cases. And it would be improbable, if not impossible, for OCR to resolve those types of numbers this year with half of the staff disproportionately impacted.
So that's staggering. No country should treat their children like this. Secretary McMahon claims, and I'm going to read you what she says, that she will, quote, make sure that our students with special needs are taken care of, end quote, while she fires the people who are responsible for looking out for them. With half the staff it used to have, OCR is now dismissing civil rights complaints at an unusually high rate, and that means families that are reaching out to OCR for help are getting denied that help more and more often. The Trump administration's response to this is to claim that this is just because they are streamlining the case review process. Dr. Rodriguez, do you think the Trump administration is telling the full story about what's happening with these civil rights complaints? Is this just a matter of streamlining procedures, or is something else going on here?
In my professional opinion, I can't imagine that to be the case. There's a difference between resolving cases and dismissing them entirely. From March 11th, as I recall, through June 27th, there was an unheard of amount of dismissals from OCR, almost 30% more cases than in the previous year, which was around 3,000. And with half the staff at OCR dismissing more than 30% of the cases they received, seems improbable they had what we would consider a rigorous and thoughtful approach to investigation. And the biggest concern is that investigations may be individual per the student that's referred, but they are oftentimes red herring for a larger systemic issue, and these can be patterns of either discrimination or abuse within schools and school systems that we really need to investigate thoroughly to ensure that other students are also not being impacted.
All right. That's a very important point. You know, there's a real cost to the Trump administration's actions, whether a family's case is dismissed outright or even significantly delayed. Remember G's story. G's mom has cut her time in school down to 2 hours a day while she waits for the Office of Civil Rights. And by dismantling the Department of Education, Trump is effectively taking these kids out of school and punishing them by making certain they don't have access to an education. So, Ms. Weingarten, you lead one of the nation's largest teachers' unions. Right now, Congress is deciding how to fund government, all while the Trump administration is threatening more rescissions, including more cuts to the Department of Education. Here we are in Congress. What do you think Congress should be doing to make things right for students with disabilities?
So I think that what you're doing today is very important. First off, I think what you're doing today, and also Senator telling G's story, is absolutely imperative. Because I think what happens with, so that's number one, because what happens with the American people is that since the Department of Education does not run any schools, it's really, it is about an education oversight agency that is protecting civil rights, and by giving the funding that it does in IDA, in rural funding, in Title I, in so many of the other titles, it was an opportunity engine. So I think it's really important to put a face on these cuts and to make it clear what the effect is going to be on students. That's number one. And number two, I think you have to do what all of you did, frankly, during the debate in terms of the big ugly. You were able to communicate to the American people just how the effects of these actions. And sometimes even when we lose, which is terrible to lose, sometimes losing a battle doesn't mean losing the war. And I think that we need to be clear, like at the beginning of this school year, I think all of us need to actually show and demonstrate what these cuts are doing to make things harder. I'll say one more thing, which is, in some ways, teachers, because teachers try to MacGyver everything, because they try to make everything work, they will do everything in their power to try to obviate the cuts. And so that is, but that's who we are, and that's who we will always be. So I think really telling these stories, lifting them up, being in schools, and also making sure that teachers and paraprofessionals and parents in classrooms are there as the choir is very important.
Right. Thank you. It is disgraceful that Donald Trump is trying to cut support for public education, and particularly to cut support for our children with disabilities. Let's be clear. When Donald Trump and Secretary McMahon claim that they are supporting families, that they are supporting education, they are supporting parents, they are supporting students, they are lying. They are undercutting the futures of our children. And for our children with disabilities, this is particularly harmful. They cannot afford to miss this time in school. And if they have no one to watch out for them, then we know far too often they get left behind. We are in this fight because we believe that the future of this nation lies with our children. I want to agree with your final point, and that is there is power to speaking out. I understand that these are hard times, but we don't give up because our children need us. So we stay in the fight, we speak out, we fight back, and we do not pass budgets that leave the door open for more cuts for the education of our children. So thank you all for being here today. Thank you for speaking out. Thanks to the rest of you who came. And thank you, Senator Hirono, for holding this hearing.
Thank you, Senator.